Wanted to introduce you today to Kevin and Chris. Chris is my business partner. Worked at Vermont for a long time now, Chris. You've got your 10-year your badge. Kevin, you've been doing action coaching for about 15 years now, haven't you? Something like that, I think.
I'm in the 15th year, this year. So
yeah, well done. I think I met you about 11 years ago at the BNI down at the Concord Club.
That's right. Yeah,
you were fresh-faced
every Wednesday morning. Still.
Yeah. Fresh-faced, and you're still fresh-faced now, which is amazing. What is your secret? I think your hair is
a good bit of light. That's all.
That's what it is. Well, yeah, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. This is our second webinar. We did one 2 weeks ago on going back to the office and what you should be thinking about right now around planning to bring your people back to the office. And then it sort of occurred to us that actually not everyone is going to go sort of full pelt back into the office, and there's going to be a sort of a mixed workload of sometimes working in the office and sometimes working at home when the kids aren't there. And so we thought, well, let's do another one. And so this is it. This is the second one in our series of two. So it's also the finale, but also the start of the future for everyone, I suppose. So without further ado, yes, just to remind everyone, this has been recorded, this webinar, for marketing purposes, just so you all know. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hand over to Kevin, and he's going to start off with a few questions for everyone. So I'm going to leave you all on unmute, so it's up to you whether you mute or unmute. So that's great if you could, we really appreciate it if you join in and sort of ask questions and give your feedback, because then it makes it a better learning experience for everyone on the call today. All right, Kevin, over to you.
Excellent, good. Well, thank you very much for having me back on. It's always the first one is generally people sort of saying, yeah, we'd like you on. If you get invited back, that's always a good sign in my book, so that you didn't do anything wrong. So what I wanted to do is I was sort of asked to sort of, to help out really with to look at managing in a virtual world. So we have all had this sort of amazing change in mindset over the last 3 months. A lot of people forced to work from home for various reasons. And I look after about 20, 25, 26 clients. Every one of those has had some people working from home. There's not one has sort of managed to completely stay at work. And so that has brought some challenges within what we're doing, but we're also finding actually some people have been very surprised about the benefits of working from home. I've had one client that said he reckons his production levels are up 20% on where it was before, which takes some getting your head around. So I really wanted to sort of look at a little bit of the psychology around this. That for some of you there will be looking to say, yes, I did enjoy it. It was good. I think it was good. Others will be saying, well, I don't think my performance was as great, and we'll do it if we have to, but we really don't want to. And others of you will be going, well, actually, is there some hybrid? Is there some way of doing this between? And I think that the reality is, it really doesn't matter. There's no reason as a workforce whether we have to work from home, or we have to work in the office. Obviously, if you're doing things that require you to take actions face to face, or manufacture stuff, you have to be at work. But for a lot of us in the service based and technology based, then it can be either way. So what I wanted to really sort of get a bit of a poll from you guys as the audience is what do we fear? So if we are thinking about either for ourselves working from home, or we run businesses and we've got team members who we thinking might be wanting to work from home, what are our worries and our fears around that? So if you want to put that in the chat box, or if anybody's got wants to put their hands up and talk. I can't actually think with Teams, I can't actually see everybody, so I think whoever speaks will come up on my screen. So what anybody got some fears about either working from home or having their workforce working from home?
got any takers?
No one's worried at all. They're all on the wrong call.
Yeah. I think I'm definitely worried about.
There's some comments in the chat window.
That will help. Okay, Scott's asked, how do we ensure people are being as productive without the face-to-face contact?
Excellent. Okay, so I think we seem to have got some feedback. Is that? Can you hear the feedback?
Yeah,
what I'm going to do, Kevin, is I'm going to mute everyone, and then if you want to unmute yourself again, and we'll just see if that fixes it.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a loop. I better unmute myself. Is that okay?
That's much better, yeah.
Good. Okay. So the productivity, I think that to me is one of the biggest things, that we fear that if they are working from home, out of sight, out of mind, are we going to be as productive as we should be? So yeah, I definitely would put that probably at certainly top of my list if I was sort of thinking that way.
Yeah, we've got a couple of other things in the chat there, Kevin. We've got social interaction.
Yep.
Yeah. We've got staff well-being. We've got performance decrease. We've got, particularly for solicitors, it's around confidentiality, supervision, keeping a check that things are like they should be. And how do we ensure people are being productive without the face-to-face contact?
Yeah.
And there's also issues around, really interesting, around employers' liability once people are at home. Yeah.
I think there will be some. The technical legal side. I had one at the moment. One of his team has got dodgy Wi-Fi, so he's had to lay a cable from the front room all the way upstairs up into the attic where his office is. So there's this big long cable all the way through his house, and he's saying health and safety. That's not great. And so the employers sort of question whether he should actually pay for a Wi-Fi extender type thing for the team member, or whether the team member should buy it. Which those are valid questions you ask. But I think the key ones for me are the previous one. So it's about how do we ensure the performance, and that relationship with the team members if they're not actually in our office, and from that the culture, the culture of the organisation. So I think from that we're all pretty much aligned with these challenges. So if we look at sort of a lot of people think motivation. If I want to motivate people, the only real way to motivate people is to pay them more money, and this has been proven now scientifically that money is not a motivator. Okay, for unless it's a mundane job, paying people more money does not get more productivity. Okay, and this is Surinder Vembo, CEO of Zoho. He looks at it in very much motivators around autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Okay, so quite high level, sort of, almost sort of spiritual type things. This also comes out from a guy called Daniel Pink in a very good book called Drive. How people are motivated. And I've loved that book. I studied it a lot, but even that, for me, I wanted to understand why that was the case. What was actually going on here? So I broke this down into the key to real motivation is these three things. Okay, that it's about performance, it's about relationships, and it's about personal growth. And the reason it's these three things is because this is how our brain is wired. Okay, our brain is wired with a part of our brain called the reptilian brain, which is all about getting things done, doing stuff, which is our performance. We have an emotional limbic system, which is about our relationships to other people, other sort of animals that are around us, and how we feel. And that's our limbic system that deals with relationships. And then we have our neocortex, which is our high-level thinking brain, which is our learning brain, which loves to grow. It loves to learn new stuff and develop. So because if you think about our motivation is obviously driven by how our brains are wired, these three things are our key motivator. Okay, this is really what drives us forwards. And if we look at performance, then performance is all about having clarity around our key performance indicators, our goals, targets. You know, that part of our brain likes competition, it likes winning, but it likes the autonomy to do what it does. Okay, it likes to, yeah, it's quite selfish, that part of the brain. It's very much me part of our brain. Our relationships is really about communication. It's about enjoying what we do. It's our social part of our aspect, and it's also a little bit towards our purpose. You know, why are we actually here? You know, it's about other people, not just us. And then our growth is our education, learning new skills, training. It's our ability to master something. You know, to actually be good. We all like to be good at something. You know, so if you look at TV shows, you know, you've got Bake Off, you've got MasterChef. You know, these are all shows that really sort of tap into that part of our brain that we'd love to be as good as those people. But obviously there's an element of work that needs to go with it. So if we look at this in a remote working type, or in a traditional office, you know, in a traditional office environment, a traditional work environment, all of these three things are actually worked upon, sometimes without even thinking about it. Okay, there's the performance from, you know, goals that we have to achieve within our role. We're around a group of other people, and there's generally training that we have to sort of go on to become better. And because we're all around each other, we actually sort of, you know, almost get that without even thinking about it. So if I'm sitting there and I'm doing my job and somebody's sitting next to me doing their job, yeah, then if I stop, they'll look at me and go, "Oh, he stopped. Should I stop or should I carry on?" And I'll say, "Well, he's still working, so I better still work." So that sub-level communication is going on all the time, even though we're not focused on it. If we take this out of the work scenario, we put somebody at home, their environment in which they're working is going to have different cues. Yeah, they may be sitting there working, and their partner is sitting there drinking a cup of coffee. There's no performance there to actually keep them performing. So we've really got to look at this and think about what it is that we need to do around each of these three things, whether they're at work or in what we're looking at is where they're going to be at home. So if we look at this sort of performance, we as human beings, we like to perform. We want to be sort of in this sort of zone, you know, in this middle zone here, okay, where we're not too little, you know, underloaded, too laid back, inactive. We don't want to be in burnout, sort of breakdown. We just want to be sort of, you know, in this optimum stress. So there's enough driving us forwards to give us that great performance without going too far. Now, again, in a work situation, this is easier to monitor. You know, you're seeing people, if they're over here and stressed, you can have a word with them, you can have a chat with them. If they're down here, they might need a bit of encouragement to go forward. Once they're out of sight, you know, at home or in a virtual world, we lose sight of this. So as managers, we lose sight of where they are on here. Okay, so the first thing we've got to understand is, because we don't have that naturally by seeing people day to day, you know, we could just pop out of the office and see them at their desk. Yeah, we have to build in systems to actually allow that to happen. So what we're doing with our clients at the moment is, you know, there has to be, for me, daily check-ins. Okay, they've got to be a way to check in every single day with key people to actually see where they are. Yeah, and sometimes just ask them, you know, how do you feel? You know, do you feel, are you up here or are you down here? Okay, because, you know, it's very difficult to do that. You know, if you don't see somebody for a week, you know, you might see them sort of, you know, when you do see them, they're sort of here, but then for the rest of the week they're up here and they're in burnout. Okay, so we've got to build in these systems and processes, and I think, you know, Chris, you use Teams quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, do you find Teams allows this sort of to happen easier than, you if you didn't have that tool?
Yeah, 100%. Since lockdown started, using a rhythm of online meetings and check-ins and things has really helped us with this.
Yeah. And one of the feedbacks I've got, clients doing these daily check-ins, we used to call them toolbox talks. So there'll be a sort of grab a cup of coffee, you stand on your toolbox, you have a bit of a chat. What are you doing? What are you focused on? Right, off you go. But when you're in an office environment, because you're around everybody, you feel that, well, because I see you anyway, I don't need to do that. And actually having the discipline of, because I don't see you, that we do this at 9 o'clock on Zoom, on Teams, every single day, that discipline is actually getting that high level performance. Because in the old days in the office, you'd come in, everyone would be sitting around, they'd be doing other things. It was like herding cats. Now everybody has it in their diary, and therefore it happens. So he's actually finding it's much easier to actually manage his remote teams than it was his teams in the office, which is crazy, but because he's got the discipline in place, which you had to because they were remote. So that's the first thing is we've got to have this sort of understand where they are, keep them in this optimum performance bracket with those regular check-ins. The second thing is we love to, if you think about sort of games and sports, we all play games and sports because we get instant feedback. We get to see, if I do this, I get this. So if you take 10-pin bowling, I bowl a ball, within a few seconds I know how many skittles I've knocked down. If you could never see how many skittles you knocked down until 3 months after you actually bowled the ball, do you think people would play 10-pin bowling? No. They just go, this game is ridiculous. I'm bowling this ball and I've got to wait 3 months before I get the results. So the key to business as a whole, but certainly remotely, is we've got to give feedback. Okay, that feedback has got to be given to those people, whether they're at work, but more importantly at home, that they can see their level of performance. So this need, therefore, to have your systems and processes in place to use automation, to use CRM systems, ERP systems, account systems. You've got to use the technology in order to get that feedback. Because in the past, they could rely on the feedback you were giving them, by popping around, or the atmosphere in the room, or there'll be things that sort of that were happening in the office that suddenly all of that information is suddenly gone. It's disappeared. So having dashboards, a way to log into their dashboard. I know I use Salesforce, and Salesforce, as soon as you log in, it opens up a dashboard, so your activity, how many times you're in, how many calls you made, how many tasks you've got. So we've got to get a real high level of performance that they can see. Now, if they're reliant on you giving them their feedback, it's going to be late, it's going to be ad hoc, it's going to be slow, out of date. They need to know their feedback as soon as they do it. So they're in charge of their own feedback. So important, this one. So, and have you got any examples, Chris, where you've done yourself, or you've seen clients that you do this really well?
Giving feedback,
making sure that people see the results of their activities, what they're actually doing.
Yeah, really interesting actually, and I will come on to that in my section a little bit later. Actually, I'll just going to show how we one of the techniques we use to measure that, how we use some technology to do that. So, but yeah, definitely we've got a meeting once a week where we go through our dashboard with our teams, so that everyone is accountable to each other in the team. I'll show you a little bit how we do that, but also those daily huddles again. Just what's our priorities? Did we complete them? And yeah.
So what we lose, but what we had in the office, that we lose when we go remote, we've just got to bring back. We've got to spend a bit more time and effort bringing back those metrics and that visibility to what's going on, because that's the bit that I think we lose the most is that visibility. So really, those to me are the two things around performance. Clear goals, make sure that people are understand how they're performing, they've got their metrics, they've got that feedback, so they can adapt their performance to suit. The second one is probably the one that is missed the most, is that relationship. Okay, that they lose that ability to, you know, be part of something. We are an emotional relationship animal. Okay, we do perform better when we're around people. Now, one of the things that does affect this a lot is people's behavioural profiles. So we use a system called DISC, which is a very, very simple process to understand whether you're an extrovert person or an introvert person, whether you're a task person or a people person. People will need more stimulus around being around other people than task-focused people. Okay, so accountancy firms that all went remote are generally fine, because accountancy people, generally speaking, are more task focused, so they're quite happy sitting in a room on their own all day banging out numbers. But if you've got anyone that's a people person, they will struggle more within that. Okay, so the first thing we've got to do is we've got to assess what our people are, who they are, what profiles they are, how do they like to work. Okay, it's no good just assuming that, yeah, we're all going to go remote now and everyone's, because I like being remote, everyone's going to be liking remote. We've got to look at the profiles of the people we've got, get the feedback from them to say, look, you know, what do you enjoy? Do you enjoy working from home? Do you prefer work? You know, we need to have this two-way discussion. You know, I think in today's world, you know, we've got to look at hybrid systems. You know, all working from home can work, but you've got to have a very, very set type of people and a way of working. All at work may be sort of too inflexible. That hybrid version is where I see it's going to sort of, we're going to move forwards. And so having a workspace where some people can come in because they like being around other people would be great. So you'll work together, and those people that are quite happy to do remote, then they can work remote as well. But base it around the people that you've got. Okay, and if you are recruiting, then make sure that you recruit and you bring this in. Okay, you do your psychometrics for these people to understand, are they going to be good at working from home, yeah, or where their weaknesses will be, because you have to then adapt for those weaknesses to actually get the best out of them. If you just assume that they're going to like it, then it ain't going to work. Okay, and then check in regularly. So I'm a believer of quarterly appraisals. So every 90 days you appraise your team based on their relationships. So how are they feeling? You know, how can we improve? How can they improve? And their personal development. Okay, which I'll come on to a second. So the third one then is the personal growth. So it's very easy. Again, it's that out of sight, out of mind. Well, you know, Charlie's working from home. I don't see him every day. I do my check-in, and I forget that one of the biggest factors that really motivates us all is our ability to improve. You know, to continue to learn, continue to get better. And in a group environment, there's often group learning. So, you know, you see other people doing things, you chat with them. Oh, how's that going? How does that work? So you get that learning motivation through the people you're around. When you're remote, obviously that's gone. Okay, that ability to look at other people. So the danger is you end up stagnant. People start to stagnate when they work from home too much. I find it myself. You know, I get into a comfort zone. I'm not challenging myself, therefore I'm not growing. So therefore I've got to get my education from other sources. So going on to webinars, going into podcasts, you know, reading books. But one of the big aspects is learning with other people. You know, learning through, you know, discussions. So you've got to create that. If it's not going to happen naturally at the coffee station, you've got to, again, bring in the discipline to have these places where your team can actually learn and work together and improve. So, you know, that's again, another thing you've got to add into that. And you've probably seen this now. There's a lot more online learning, Chris, that's going on. You know, a lot of people are putting their They're training manuals online, so they're writing videos. So those are all great, but don't underestimate the value of learning with other people. You know, again, children learn by copying. You know, that's what we're good at. So you're going to have to create those environments where that actually happens. And then you add this into appraisals. You know, personal development plans. Say my goal is to do them quarterly. Yeah, there's no point in doing appraisal once a year, because you know you're appraising something that happened 9 months ago. It's absolutely ridiculous. So you've got to be looking at this as a continual development of your people. If your people are growing, yeah, then they will grow within the organisation. Where I see people struggling with this is because the business isn't growing. Yeah, they don't develop their people because they fear that if I improve my people, they're not going to be able to grow in my organisation, and then they're going to leave. So they end up not growing their people, which in effect means that their business isn't going to grow anyway, because you know if the people aren't growing, the business isn't growing. So you've got to have these clear goals for your business, where it's going to be in 5-10 years time. Allow the people to grow up in it, and if they do leave, then fine. You've got to accept that. You know, I always think it's like football teams that develop their own talent. At some stage, they will probably go and leave to play for a better club, unless you can be a better club. Then they stay. So make sure we do those appraisals on a regular basis. And you know, the secret to making remote working work is the people. The only people that are going to make it work is them. Yeah, they have to understand that this is going to be the new normal, that this is the new normal. Okay, this is how it works, and they've got to have that self-discipline to be able to work from home. If you're not self-disciplined, yeah, then working from home is going to be a challenge. And again, we come back to that profiling that allows us to understand a little bit about that, the psychology, to actually help that to happen. So in order to get that self-discipline, you know, you've got to be a person that can turn goals into actions, routines and habits, you know, to really sort of get that structure in your day. And one of the best tools that I've ever come across for this is a default diary. Okay, so for those people working from home, break the day and the week down into compartments. You know, I've been working from home for the last 3 months, and I find it difficult. You know, I get up, I sit at my desk, you know, I work through, I get a bit of lunch. You know, there's no difference between work and home, and it can, over a period of time, it can become tiring and it can become stressful. I've actually moved back to the office now, and I quite like a 15 minutes drive to and from work, so I can relax. I can switch off of work brain into home brain. So if you're at home, you've got to find your discipline to actually achieve that. I had one guy that was from corporate. He'd actually become a coach, and he was working from home. And every morning he would put his suit and tie on, because he would always go to work dressed. I would recommend that as well. Dress as if you're going to work. And then he would walk out the front door of the house. He'd walk down the street. He'd walk round the corner, back in the front door, and then start work. And he says the only way I can get into the mindset of actually being at work is I have to do that commute. and I think that's, yeah, if you're that sort of person, then do it. I mean, it might sound stupid, but if it works for you, then make sure that you do separate the work life and the home life, because, and certainly if you've got kids and family at home, they don't understand. They don't understand that mummy and daddy are, you know, if they're at home, they should be there for the kids. So again, it's the discipline for you, but also for the family as well, and that can be hard for some people. So those are my 3 things. It's, you know, how to make it work remotely is no different to how you do actually at the office. You just have to think more about doing it in a slightly different way to the way you did it at the office. So you've got to have your performance metrics, you've got to have the relationships, and you've got to have that personal growth. If you do those 3 things, you'll have a motivated workforce, and your results potentially will be better, than they will be at work, because I guarantee you probably weren't doing it that well at work anyway. So at least this way you're actually thinking about it. Good. And if you do need a bit of help with that, to think about it, I'm still offering my 3-hour session to people to help them through this. There's my email address there, and the phone number there. But you can always contact me through Chris and Ollie as well. So
yeah, that's awesome, Kevin. Thank you for that. And I just think what you've said is so true to our experience, that so we had some rhythms and cadences, and some of those things that you talked about. But this experience, whether we go back to an office now or later or never, or what the future looks like, I feel that as we've really had to tighten up on some of our disciplines and really schedule stuff out and get those cadences in place, we couldn't do it, but we'll take that forwards now we have tightened it up, because we're like you said, we're seeing some better results in certain areas as part of that. So yeah, that's really awesome advice. Is Kevin frozen, or is he just stunned into silence?
He might have stunned into silence. Yeah, he's waiting in the lobby. He is coming back. Maybe his internet's dropped off.
Yeah.
Hello. Sorry, my computer's not been well, so it's
no problem.
On your phone.
That's a great segue.
Gone back to my phone.
Have we got any questions or comments in the chat to pick up on at this point? Virtual commute advice works for me. Glad I'm not the only one. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things with this. So we're finding, Kevin, I'm sure you find this, that you've got to learn this together, right? You've got to be communicating, evolving, trying stuff, because that whole walking out the door, putting your suit on thing, that's not me. But I've found other things work for me, and we're discussing that in the team weekly. What are people doing? What are we trying? Because people are all over the shop with different things and different challenges that are emerging. But what we found is brilliant, and I don't know if you've seen this as well, is we're talking about we're a bunch of IT guys. We're pretty cynical of all that mumbo jumbo personality stuff, but we're sitting there asking each other, are you sleeping all right? And what's your bedtime routine? And all this stuff that was off limits before now is open for discussion, because we're just trying to fix things and make things better.
I was talking to a client earlier in the week, and I likened it to if you're happily married, and you spend a lot of time with your partner, you're always sort of if things go wrong, you're accused of not communicating. Well, I do communicate, because we're always saying, yeah, but you don't actually talk to me. If you go off on holiday for 2 weeks, and you're apart, I guarantee you'll phone them up every day. And you'll have a better conversation with them because you're apart than you will actually if you're actually living together. And that's what this is. It's sometimes we can use this to our advantage, that because we don't sort of treat people because they're there, well, you're just there, therefore you should know what I'm thinking and what I'm doing because you're sitting next to me. Well, no, because you don't communicate to me, and therefore I've got no idea, or I might assume it, but I'll assume it wrong. If I'm not seeing you, then the only way I can communicate is actually to make the effort to communicate. So if I think we use this, we can actually have better communication with our teams than we would do if we were in an office. And that's why I said this guy's got a 20% improvement in performance, because he's now actually talking to his team on a regular basis, whereas before, because they were there, he sort of thought, well, they're there, therefore I don't need to talk to them.
Yeah, because you don't get those water cooler conversations in inverted commas. So you have to start being really deliberate about it and scheduling some time, and then you actually do it in a structured way every week. And someone even might make notes rather than just having that interesting conversation, and then everyone thinks they checked in and found out how people were, or got some new ideas or whatever. But there was no follow through because the conversation was put to bed and forgotten about.
Yeah. And you might find you've got a little bit more time each day as well, because you're not being interrupted by people just wandering past your desk or being distracted. So therefore use that time positively. Have a plan for what you're going to do that time with. So.
Yeah. And we got another question in the chat around, I think it's key that the office staff know when you're available, and I guess each other are available, when people are working away at home, and so that people can have flexibility You know, how can we know where you know, whether someone's available at that point? I think that's such a good question, because I think the assumption now is we're all available 24/7, right? We're just on the end of a chat message, and that's a real challenge, isn't it?
I think it's a big challenge in traditional workplaces, and certainly if anyone works in open plan offices, you know, it's one of the biggest challenges for those people is you're always available. And it's as human beings, you know, we don't like saying no, we don't like rejection and saying people, look, leave me alone, but it's certainly in a management position, it's so important. You know, you can't be accessible all the time. You know, you've got to agree the ground rules of when people can actually contact you and when they can't contact you. So, you know, so therefore in when you're not there, it's almost the opposite way, is you've got to make it easy for people to contact you and be clear when they can. It's almost like a Polaroid or a polar image of all the problems you had when you're in an open plan office. It's almost a complete opposite when you're remote.
Yeah, definitely.
But the problems are still the same. You just got to look at it from a
right. It's it's really good, isn't it? Really good stuff. I'll tell you what we'll do now. Let me jump in. We're going to do the second half now, which won't take us as long, and we'll still aim to finish at 5, unless there's lots of questions. People can hang on as long as they want for questions, because we're all at home and we've got nothing else to do, so we can do that. But I've got a few bits prepared that I just wanted to run through, particularly from an IT perspective, that a lot of which segues really well into what Kevin's brought us today. So let me share out this, and we'll see if we can get this done. Okay, how's that? You see that all right?
Good.
All right. So yeah, I just wanted to look at, you know, talk about flexible working, virtual working, whatever we want to put around it. How do we enable IT to support that in our businesses? I've got some handouts that we'll send over to you afterwards. We'll get those shared out. But let me just sort of click through quick. Do put questions in the chat as we go if you've got them, but we can also take more at the end. So just a few things I really wanted to think about. This isn't a comprehensive view of all of this, but just to get you thinking about, I think, some of the things that I think people that we see from our clients as we work with them, or prospective clients, you know, other businesses that we talk to about the challenges we've got. We're always trying to learn and understand where people are at. So I think the first thing I just want to cover off, and Kevin talked about this, is planning. That you know, as we went into lockdown, your IT people will have responded fantastically well, and got you set up working at home. You know, they were absolutely brilliant, worked long hours and got it all done for you. What I can tell you is they're not going to be as super excited about doing that on the backside of this. They had their moment to shine. They worked long hours. A lot of late nights were spent. And as we unwind, there's actually no reason that we need to do it without planning. We've got time to plan, so let's make sure we do that. So make sure you're booking meetings with your IT people to sit down and say, hey, look, this is what we want to start to do. We want some flexibility. We're going to start bringing people back. What is it that we need to do? And we covered a lot of this stuff off in the last webinar. We've got a planning workbook, which we're very happy to send you as well, just particularly around thinking about as you bring people back from furlough or back, you know, who've been working at home for a long time and then back into the office, and just from an IT perspective, things that you want to tick off and make sure you've got in plan. But do that planning. I think it's crucial as we go through. The next thing I just wanted to touch on was support, IT support. You know, that we've all, I'm sure, got someone to support our IT, and we probably all got an office, you know, a bunch of PCs in it. You know, we've got some servers, maybe some sort of network and internet connection. But it was nice and neat, and we figured it out and we got it working well, and we knew how to support it really well. And then what we did was we decided, well, COVID came along, and so we blew that apart, and now our office is empty. It's got no computers in it, or they're all probably turned off in a lot of cases. And we might now have this, where we've got a PC in someone's home, and we've got their own little router thingy in there, or Wi-Fi, and they've got their own internet connection. And then we did that a whole bunch more times because everyone went to their own homes. And so the complexity of what's now being supported just went from one nice, neat, tidy box to all of this stuff. And that internet connection will have come from whatever cheap deal your staff member got, you know, for £8 a month or £10 a month, and it's going to be consumer, domestic grade, and support on these contracts. That's where the savings come in. That's why it's cheap versus your business internet, because it's not as good quality, the support isn't as good. Goodness knows what that little box is that they're using to connect. It may work really great. The Wi-Fi is awesome until it isn't, and people are using maybe a work machine that they took home, or maybe they're using a personal machine. It suddenly became super complex, and that's going to cause your IT people a whole bunch of challenges over time as they just try and figure that out. You know, how do you do on site now when on site someone's home? How are we going to control that PC when it doesn't belong to us as a company anymore? How are we going to think that through? Who's going to phone the internet service provider for support when there's a problem? So just a whole bunch of challenges which we've got to think through together, between the business and IT to come together, have that conversation. So again, just to reiterate, it comes back to planning, but there's some big challenges that we can't just avoid and sweep under the carpet. Otherwise, you know, we will get system issues. And what we don't want as we come out of this downturn, this dip in the recession, is we've got to come out fast and strong, and we don't want tools issue, technology issues holding us back just when we're getting going. So that's support. Security is exactly the same conversation. We did exactly the same thing. We knew how to secure this nice, neat, tidy box and the things that went on, and now we've got all of this stuff. There's so many security issues in here around, particularly with personal stuff. Where's the data now? Is it being backed up? You know, is the other connections secure? All this sort of loads of questions around that, which we need to answer. And the other thing to say around security right now is that that we're seeing lots of the metrics that we see in terms of number of cyber attacks and instances of cyber crime are at an all-time high, and that's spiked within days of these lockdowns starting. The cyber criminals are super well funded, and they're very well organized. Their margins are really high, so they're putting a lot of time into this. And so we're not only is it more difficult to secure our networks now, but there's actually more attacks occurring. So again, we've got to be attending to that. That's security. Productivity. What we heard from Kevin there is bang in line, and what I want to say about productivity is really similar to what Kevin was saying around, you know, how do we know what productivity is? How are we measuring that? And do the old ways of doing that work? And really quick, I wanted to show you, this is our dashboard that we use to measure our teams. So I mentioned earlier we have a weekly meeting with our team leads, and we go through each team that we've got, and we just look through the numbers, and each team lead will come having analysed and report on their numbers as we go through each quarter. Up to Q3 there, and we go through and we're able to challenge each other, and so we're accountable to each other for the results, and everyone knows how these results tie into our goals as an organisation. Now, real simple, how do we do that from a technology standpoint? So what's brilliant about this is it's just a simple spreadsheet that people type numbers into. There's no rocket science around it. It's easy to set up and manage. But what's really effective about this is to store it in a cloud location. We use Microsoft Teams and we put it in there, but you could use Google or whatever system that you use. And what that means is that the spreadsheet is it doesn't lock. You know that really frustrating thing when you've got a spreadsheet and you open it from the server and it locks and no one else can get in and do it. Well, when you store it in the cloud on a cloud system, multiple people can have it open and be updating it constantly, and so that's really good for this sort of thing. So we've got departmental dashboards. In fact, there's Oliver there. He's going to go in and fiddle with it, and it's very good. He's going to play Pac-Man. Yeah, right. Thank you. So Yeah, so we've got these for each team, and then the teams, numbers go into these, and people are updating those every day. So we've just got a real good view. And although it's manual, I'm going to talk about automated dashboards in a sec, but I think manual is really powerful because it's not the numbers, it's not the dashboard that's the power. It's consciously using those numbers to let them guide us in what we're doing, isn't it? And so that manual process works really well. But you do have to get that data from somewhere, and so another question that I just want you to think about around productivity is where are you able to get the data out of your systems that you need to figure that out? So that, like Kevin was saying, how are we going to track productivity now we can't see people or be talking to people? Because we sort of know how busy people are. Maybe if you sat next to them, you can see them making phone calls, you can see them sending quotes out or whatever their job is. But now we need to know, well, how many quotes a month do we need to do? What's our conversion ratio if we're going to hit the goal? So what's our daily number of calls we need to make to achieve that? What's the leading activity indicators that we need? And can we get that information? Can you get number of dials for a salesperson out of your telephone system? Can you get number of quotes sent out of your CRM system, for example? Can you get that data? And we see a lot of systems are brilliant in functionality, but reporting is really poor. And there's a number of tools, one being Microsoft Power BI, but a lot of other dashboarding tools that can be plumbed in to the different systems that you've got and dashboards created so that you can have those live available, to your team, but also that makes it really quick to get that data to pop it into to our sort of spreadsheet dashboards as well, or you can automate the whole thing. But don't get away from that thing of actually looking at the numbers and letting them guide you. So I think some really big stuff on productivity that we can do with technology. The next one I wanted to touch on is collaboration. We've all probably worked with our IT people to this point, and hopefully begun to use something like Microsoft Teams to help us collaborate, to communicate, to work on documents together, potentially to access documents through the cloud, to have these sort of online meetings. And IT, I think IT companies like us and lots of other ones, because you see this on LinkedIn a lot, I think we were all pretty quick at helping people get set up on things like LinkedIn and Teams and using those. But actually, like we saw earlier, actually it creates a number of problems as well. Because people are now, like we heard, in a sense, you're always available to people. And so I wanted to just cover off a couple of ways that we can handle that. How do we create some boundaries for ourselves? But also, how do we know when, like the question we had earlier, how do we know when people are available, and what's the sort of rules of engagement there? So a couple of things. So one is, I think it's really, really basic, but I think everyone's got an Outlook calendar, right? Here's mine right now. Here's the webinar we're on at the moment. And the first thing I'd say is your calendar up to date? Are we in a discipline, and are our teams in the discipline of actually putting stuff into our calendar? And I think that that slide that Kevin had up with our default diary, scheduling that out into our calendars really well, so we know what we're doing and when. And a really good tip is that when you create a calendar entry, you can set whether you're free or whether you're busy at that time. Now, that's really useful for a couple of reasons, because one, if someone tries to schedule a meeting with you, that will show up as free or busy when, or available time. Secondly, when we're in this meeting now in Microsoft Teams, I can't actually show you this because I can't show you Teams because we're using it. But my presence in Teams, actually, maybe I can. Let me see if I can do this. Can you see that? You can all see yourselves, but you can see here my presence marks as presenting, because Microsoft Teams knows that I'm doing that. But if I was just, if my calendar just showed busy, if I'd set that as busy time, my Microsoft Teams would show me as busy. Or in a meeting, if I'm in a meeting with Oliver or any of you, it would show me that. So it automatically updates what we call that presence information based on our calendars. So if we're working hard in our teams, both Teams as in the application, but within our colleagues, to make sure our calendars are up to date. If we're encouraging people to do that and maybe building that as part of our accountability, that we'll all agree to do that, then it makes it so much easier to know whether we can interact with someone or not. And so I deliberately assign time where I've got some work to do, but I'm available if someone wants to disturb me at that point, because I've got to be available at some times, whereas there's other things where I don't want to be disturbed, where I know I've just got to have some undisturbed time to get some work done, and I can mark those as busy, and so that people know not to interrupt me. So partly by using the tools, but partly then by creating those rules of engagement. And just another really good strategy we've been using recently is by building in huddle meetings at the start of the day, and we've added an extra one in the middle of the day, and those are like natural interrupt points for us. So we all jump on a Teams meeting, and we can all sort of have a little bit of accountability there, but also just, hey, who's stuck, who needs someone just to grab and ask a quick question, or can I get 5 minutes with someone just to solve a problem? And it means we can be interrupted for a short period of time and then go back on and have some uninterrupted time to get on with our work. And also in Outlook, in the settings, which I won't show you right now just for time, but you can also set your start and end of the day. So again, that shows up in your free and busy time, so that people know your availability on different days, particularly for those people that are on flexi working. And I know there was a question earlier about, you know, people having to leave early, maybe to go get the kids or do some homeschooling in the mornings for a couple of hours. And so by scheduling that out, I think that makes it a lot easier to know when we are available and when we're not. And then the next thing, once you've got your calendar up to date, that makes meetings much easier, both with your internal colleagues, and you can do that just, you know, by booking meetings in a regular way. But also, if I just grab this, there's a system we use called Bookings. So in my email signature, I've got a link to my Bookings, and I'll load that up so I can just show you what that is. It's opened over here, so let me just drag it out here. So Bookings is a system that allows you, if you wanted to book some time with me, you know, clients or whoever it is. So let's say Kevin wanted to grab 15 minutes with me. He could click on my link, and you could click on a quick 15-minute phone call here, and then the system is immediately going to start to show us that tomorrow I've got a couple of slots I can do, but that doesn't work for Kevin, so he's going to have a little look at next week. Oh, that's much better, a lot more availability. Kevin can click on 10:30, perfect. He can type Kevin, put his address in there, click book, and then he'll get a calendar invite, and I'll get a calendar invite for that. And because of the way I've set it up, it'll automatically create the Teams meeting for us, so we can just go ahead and click on that, or he can leave his phone number and do that. So that's a really nice tool to allow people outside of our organisations to book time with us without that really frustrating sort of backwards and forwards email process that can take you know, inordinate amounts of time and energy to get. There's lots of other systems that do a similar thing, Calendly, and you may use another system already, but really good. The other one I wanted to tell you about is called Microsoft Find Time. If you use Microsoft 365, Office 365, sorry, Find Time is another system which I won't show you for time because we haven't got time, but that's brilliant for booking meetings with multiple people outside of your organization, because it creates a poll. You can offer 4 or 5 different slots, send it out, people can vote on the slots that are available to them or not, or if it's a preferred one or not, and you can even set it so that once an agreed slot has been identified, it'll automatically then schedule that meeting in for everyone, so you don't even have to round it off at the end, that you can just set it away and get it running. So just a bunch of things there which I think will help you to stay productive with your team and know what we're doing and what we're working on. And the last one I got is, I just wanted to touch on very, very quickly, is Shadow IT. Shadow IT is, again, you need to do some planning around this, but we've got our business IT systems, and with the tools and the systems we give our people to do their work. What we're seeing that we've been seeing this for the last few years anyway, but we've seen a massive increase in it just now, is that if you don't give people tools to do their jobs, they will go and find their own tools to do their jobs, and that's getting easier and easier to do, because with cloud systems it's really easy. So Dropbox is a classic example. Someone doesn't have an ability to communicate, so they just open a Dropbox account, chuck all your company data in there, and then start sharing it with people. And now it's out of your control, and that happens a lot at the moment. And it introduces security problems, GDPR problems, ongoing problems down the line. That person left, but all that quote or that proposal they sent out's in their Dropbox, and you don't have it anymore, so you can't go back to it, and the whole thing starts to fall apart. And so again, being really proactive with this, like discussing with your people regularly, are the tools working? Have you got what you need to do your job? Just like you would, hey, is the chair that you're working on at home comfortable? Have you got a desk that's the right height? Just all the stuff we would be talking about. Let's make sure that IT is part of that conversation, and again, work with your IT people to get stuff, to get programs, roadmaps in place, to get all that stuff done. Now, I'm really sorry that I had to, that's a lot of information in a short space of time. So what I've done is I've put a couple of guides together for you. So you'll Oliver will send you these documents out after this, but I've got a list of collaboration tips. So all the stuff I've just told you about, using your calendars, using bookings, using Find Time, and all these sort of tools, I've put a bunch of links there to videos and articles which will help you and your teams just to go through that. Please use that however you want. We'll send it as a Word doc, so you can rebrand it and get it into whatever format you want to use it in. That's absolutely fine. And also, I've just put a sort of a guide together which really covers off the content that I've gone through today, which is something that we use with our clients, just around helping people to think through some of the things that we've talked about today, that as you move into this phase of starting to think it through, so you can use this as a bit of a sort of checklist. Have we covered that off? Have we thought about that? And plan that out. But again, like I said earlier, do make sure you're involving your IT people and be inviting them. Come and say, hey, look, let's have a monthly call, or let's have a quarterly meeting, or whatever. The cadence probably needs to be a little bit faster at the moment than maybe quarterly planning, just because everything's changing so fast. So there we go. That's what I've got for you. Have we got any questions either for me or Kevin? How are we doing in the chat, Oliver?
So yeah, thanks, Chris. We had a question earlier, or had a couple of statements earlier from a couple of people. One's left already, saying that his schedule is having to be driven by homeschooling requirements for some of our staff. Then the AFF operations director says we already had 75% staff home based. Strict diarising of time, self-discipline, having core hours when everyone works allows flexibility for staff, which is a great a great idea. But yeah, that's it for it so far. I haven't had any other questions from your pitch, Chris.
Great.
I suppose. Oh, there we go. Thank you. This has been really helpful, both confirming that we're following good practice and giving some helpful hints to manage the 25% not already home based.
Yeah, that's right.
Excellent.
Well, it sounds like whoever that is, AFF, is doing some great stuff already.
Yeah. Definitely are. They're a good organisation who are out in the community. So yeah, definitely.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And I think, following up on your points, guys, it comes back to that, really thinking about the strategy. I've never come across a team that couldn't improve its performance, whether it works in the office, at home, a football team. They're always constantly looking at ways to improve. So at least once a year, preferably once a quarter, there should be that time out of the business to actually reflect and go, right, okay, where are we going to get that 10% improvement this year? What areas we're going to do, and often, because people are so in the business, is they don't see the technology that's available. When I came across, even Zoom was like, no one was using Zoom 3-4 months ago, and suddenly now everyone uses it. So there are things like Calendly and these tools that you don't know. So you've got to talk to people like you that are working with a number of people that can say, well, what have you tried this? Have you tried this? Not everyone will work, but you should always be looking for that technology to give you that extra 10% improvement. So there should be people and processes are your two assets. Improve each of them by 10% every quarter, and you'll continue to grow. So,
great tip.
Yeah,
great tip.
Good challenge. Yeah, excellent. Okay. Well, I don't think there's any other questions. Anybody else got any comments they'd like to share with Chris and Kevin or ask anything? Doesn't seem to be. I think you stunned them all with all the learning that they've got to go away and do now. But yeah, that's been brilliant, guys. I really thank you for doing that. Much appreciated, Kevin. We'll have to do this again, maybe after our summer vacations, see how people are getting on.
You put Kevin's contact details in the chat there, didn't you? Yeah,
I did. Yeah. I'll send them around again tomorrow with a follow-up email with all the attachments, and hopefully the video recording will be up as well, so you can share that around your office with people that you might think might be interested, who had a spare hour to view all this good stuff. Okay. Well, with that, I think we'll sign off, and if I don't see you now, I'll see you in a few months. Yeah.
Lovely.
Brilliant.
Good.
Cheers, Kevin.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.